Ahoy there, YouTube! I'm back again today for some more Splinterlands content. I've been smashing on Splinterlands lately, and one of the cards that I've really been enjoying is the Djinn Oshannus right here. And so I decided I was going to make a top 10 list of cards that I would pair with them. Now, first disclaimer is that obviously, yes, there's some fantastic 8, 9, 10, 6, 7 cards that you could put with this, but I'm going to try and focus on the cheaper cards, the cards that you might not have rented, the cards that you might want to try experimenting with. And I'm trying to keep this on the relatively cheap side. But first, let's talk about Djinn and why I love him so much. And so first, 10 health right out the gate. He's a big, beefy tank, 2 magic damage, which is fantastic. But then the low-key, 5 speed. People miss him a lot, and it's absolutely delightful. And then, of course, Void, which means reduced magic damage, so people are less likely to hit you because you're super fast. And if they do hit you with magic, because, you know, it's magic, they're going to do less damage. Absolutely spectacular card. Now, first we're going to talk about 2 of the summers that I'd like to recommend, and then we'll get into the 10 cards that I've been really enjoying mixing him with. So the obvious one here is Kellyafrandul, and then, of course, Bortus. Now, Kellyafrandul it bumps that speed up to 6, which just makes you so hard to hit. Plus, you get a shield, so even when they do get that first hit in, you're going to be able to block it. And I will say honorable mention to the Scavo Hireling, who I actually forgot to mention in the Grum video, which should have done that, because if he can repair that shield, that's a really nice thing as well. Makes him really hard to kill. Now, Bortus, on the other hand, you might not think about, but then when you really think about it, like, oh yeah, it's not a bad idea. So, pretty much, if they do happen to go magic heavy, because magic heavy is a very common thing right now, how many times have we all gotten blasted by that stupid 6 green healer popping out 3 magic? Well, with this, he's now doing 2 magic, and with this, he's only doing 1 damage to you per turn. Yeah, so both these are great. Now, obviously, there is another summoner who's much more expensive, who does +1 magic damage, who's fantastic, and I would highly recommend him that. But I'm trying to keep this list, once again, on the cheaper side. Everything here, except for this, because this is a legendary, so it's going to be a little bit more on the expensive side. But every single card on here is one that you can rent for pretty dirt cheap. So, Kellia, great summoner to combo. Scavo Hireling, if you go Kellia pretty much only, and then Bortus ones I like. Now, the one honorable mention I want to put on this list, because I want to keep the whole list under 4 mana cost, because if you're spending 8, you know, if you're spending 8, that's a lot of mana to spend, especially if you're not going to put him necessarily in the front, because the great thing about Djinn is he's a great frontline tank, and he's a great backline tank. Now, I think personally he gets a little bit more value in the backline, because doing 2 magic damage, 5, 6 rounds, that's huge, that's massive, but as a frontline take, he can still hold his own as long as he has some support, just because he's so fast. And that's what I'm really going to be trying to focus on this list, is how you can properly support him on a shoestring. But the Venari Wave Simple I had to put in here, honorable mention, because, you know, he does cost 5, which breaks my list if I'm wanting to only cost 4. But he's a dirt cheap card to rent, and he's he's absolutely spectacular. Because the other thing is, he does 1 magic damage, because that's one thing you'll find as you start tinkering around with Djinn, is you gotta find that happy combo of having enough magic damage, because you don't want to have, because what you'll run into is people, he'll be down to 1 health, but then you'll still have people like just busting shield, and you're like, get through the shield and kill him. So honorable mention, Venari Wavesmith, fantastic, because it just gave some +2 armor, which is even more difficult to hit. But, continuing on with, we've got the Kelp Initiate, and if you're gonna use him as a frontline tank, one thing that I like to do is just put a little tiny meat shield in front. A Kelp Initiate's a great one to do it, especially if you combo it with that +1 speed, +1 armor, because at that point, this is a 6 speed, 1 armor thing. Maybe you got the Scavo Hireling as well, who's repairing the shield. And you think about that, the Kelp Initiate, the Scavo Hireling, and then this card, and you're looking at $13, pretty well spent. You're doing 2 magic a turn, and then hopefully maybe you have a little bit extra damage popped in there. But I really like the Kelp Initiate just in general. I think I featured it on my my top 10 cheap cards you need to rent. It's just super useful, and at 2 cost, 5 speed, I mean, how can you go wrong with it? Love that card. Also dirt cheap to rent, which is fantastic. Continuing onward, I did have one more meat shield. Oh, where was he? We'll get to him later. Mini tanks. Mini tanks are great as well to combo with the Djinn, because you know, he essentially is a tank himself. So if you put just a little mini tank there to soften the blows, and maybe you kill that main tank, or you get what I'm saying here. I just really have had a lot of success putting a mini tank in front of him instead of necessarily putting him as the front tank. Now, granted, if you're playing at lower cost, he can just completely wipe everybody out. Especially, like, yeah, he's a great card. But anyway, the Cruel Cephalopod, and then I would also recommend getting yourself the Spineback Turtle. The big reason why is sometimes you can only play with odd cost, even cost. Sometimes they take away the shield, which is why I'd also recommend renting the Orca. I think the Orca is a great blue tank, and that one has no shield at all. I don't actually have that one featured because he didn't make the top 10. But both these cards I would recommend leveling up, or at least considering trying to use with the Djinn. This one's obviously a starter card, but the Spineback Turtle, great one to add to your collection. Either buying it or just renting it out. It gives you so much more versatility. Because once again, how many times, you know, you can only have summoner, or you can only have characters under 4. And then all of a sudden you got the Spineback Turtle, you got yourself a big beefy tank at 4 costs. Love it. Alright, continuing on, Crustacean King. And this one kind of is a no-brainer here. And you might say, well, the Murdali Guardian, she's also great as well. Why would I want this one over that one? And the big one is this one has a shield. So maybe if you're using the Scavo Hireling or something like that, you might want to pop him in. Or, here's what I've done before, and it actually works. If you really want to put the Djinn in front, you can just have yourself a Crustacean King and a Murdali Guardian. You use both. That's $14 right there, but your tank is going to be healthy. You know, the one thing that I do want to mention here is the Crustacean King has a speed of 1 as opposed to the Murdali Guardian's speed of 2. So, you know, it's yin and yang, honestly. But either way, they're very cheap cards to rent. Highly recommend experimenting with both these cards. And in particular, if you get yourself a 30, you know, if you have these 3 cards right there at 14, you could put pretty much whatever else you want in there. Get some big, beefy stuff to deal some other damage, knowing that your Djinn's got to be pretty good. Now, I've pretty much talked about some obvious cards. One card I want to really spotlight here is the Naga Win Master. This one costs 4, and the big special ability here is reduces the ranged attack of all enemy monsters. And why this is so good is because he's already hard to hit. He has 5 speed. You know, if you're going with extra speed, he might have 6 speed. He's got the shield. He's got the void, magic, armor. So he's reduced damage from the magic armor. But if you combo him with the Naga Win Master, you have 1 damage going face, which is awesome. But more importantly, now he's taking reduced damage from magic and from ranged, which was awesome. And if they're trying to just melee him, it's going to be hard to do because he's got 5 speed. It's just a no-brainer. Naga Win Master. Don't see this card used much, but I tell you what, I had a good deal of success comboing it with the Djinn, and I think you might as well. All right, continuing onward. This was the other meat shield I was talking about in the front line, the Frost Lion. It's a 2 cost. I love this card. You level it up, it gets a little teeny bit better. But the bottom line is this is going to soak up 2 blows, and you know what more do you want out of it? It's $2. I personally like the Frost Lion a good deal. So, not as good as the Kelp Initiate at $2, but still, you know, why not have both? Maybe one's protecting your backline. This is actually what I use sometimes to protect my backline as well. But continuing onward, we have the Creeping Ooze, because once again, speed is the name of the game for Djinn, and if he's at 5 speed, everybody else, you make him go down 1 speed. It's pretty self-explanatory. Not to mention, it's just a 1 cost, and this is one of those cards that if you're getting new into the game and you really want to invest in a card that is going to give you just a great deal of success and it's going to allow you a lot of versatility and help you out a lot, Creeping Ooze, along with the chicken, of course, but everybody knows about the chicken, Furious Chicken. But that was like a $25 card. Creeping Ooze, though, fantastic card. He slows them down and you're faster. I mean, what more do you need to know? Continuing, and that's it. That's it. Those are the top 10 cards I'd recommend for the Djinn Oshannus. You know, the big thing I would say is if you want to try and go Magic. Magic is a solid card. And once again, that Summoner that gives you +1 Magic is just absolutely spectacular. There's also there's a pink card, I do believe, where she shoots 3 Magic. She's absolutely fantastic with them as well. And that's another thing. If you want to try and if you're willing to spend a little bit more money or go rent, and it's going to cost you a little bit more money, there's a Dragon Summoner as well who gets you +1 Magic, and that I found is a very sick combo if you can get +1 Magic in any way, shape, or form in blue. And I guess, you know what, I should make a list of the top cards that are worth investing in, like the cards that are just going to win you games. I need to do that. Oh my gosh. But then again, that's not this. The Djinn Oshannus. Also, if you have any ideas or feedback on this list or future ideas for lists, please let me know in the comments below. And as always, thanks for your time, YouTube. Bye-bye.